the First Media Academy Radio in Nigeria. My name is Olatunde Idowu, and I'm not alone on the show, as always.
Good morning. Thanks for joining us. My name is Inioluwa Akintayo.
I have two papers with me, and Ini's got one. It's always a man's show. And I have the Punch and the Vanguard.
With me is the Nation newspaper.
Checking out some of the headlines from the Vanguard newspaper. Magu probe panel quizzes 3 EFCC operatives. I'll bring that story to you in a short while.
PTF, airborne transmission of coronavirus update with the riders. Government cautions against mass gatherings. Electronic sharing of test results to start.
And still staying with the Vanguard newspaper, COVID-19 cases in Nigeria increased by 595 with 4 deaths. I'll bring you that story from the Vanguard newspaper.
Magu's office searched by detectives.
Yoruba is the glue holding Nigeria together. That's credited to an elder statesman, Olufalaye.
I have a story here from the business world. Unclaimed dividends rise to 158.4 billion naira.
And going straight to the Punch newspaper, police deny killing of Ibadan 1 million boys leader. The detail is in the inside pages of the Punch newspaper.
Zindzi Mandela dies at 59.
Oh boy. IPPIS targeted at violating university autonomy. That's credited to ASU. And I'll bring you that story in a short while.
And my last story is from the exciting world of sports. Roger slams poor Iheanacho.
Court convicts man for defrauding American of $2,500. That story, we'll be bringing it to you in a short while. Let's get down to the business of the morning. Ini?
Alright, I'll be reading my stories from the Nation newspaper. My first story, which says PTF airborne transmission of coronavirus update. The Presidential Task Force, PTF, on Monday said a new evidence has showed that airborne transmission of COVID-19 is possible. It urged citizens to absolutely wear a face mask and adhere to other non-pharmaceutical protocols such as avoiding mass gatherings, practicing social distancing, and maintaining hand hygiene by washing of hands. Speaking during the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 briefing in Abuja, the Director General of the Nigeria Center for Disease Control (NCDC), Dr. Chikwe Ihekweazu, said, and I quote, "Over the past few weeks, increasing evidence has emerged that in addition to droplet infection, we cannot rule out that airborne transmission is also possible as a mode of COVID-19 spread." Ihekweazu added, and I quote, "This means that staying together in closed spaces and clusters such as in restaurants and in small rooms with very poor ventilation increases the risk of transmission. Indoor activities are riskier than outdoor activities, especially when there are many people in the room, when we don't adhere to distancing them, and when we don't wear masks." The Minister of Health, Dr. Sage Ehanire, added, and I quote, "I emphasize again that conscientious wearing of masks is being confirmed in various studies as the easiest, cheapest, and most reliable way to check the rate of spread." The NCDC is set to begin the electronic transmission of COVID-19 results, its Director General said at its yesterday briefing. PTF, airborne transmission of coronavirus update. Government cautions against mass gatherings, electronic sharing of test results to start.
I'll be taking my first story from the Punch newspaper with the headline, "Police deny killing of Ibadan 1 million boys leader." The Oyo State Police Command has denied that men of the command were responsible for the killing of Biola Ebila, the alleged gang leader of the 1 million boys in Ibadan, the Oyo State capital. Ebila was reportedly killed in the Kudeti area of Ibadan Sunday following a clash between two rival cult groups. The State Commissioner of Police, Nwachukwu Enwunu, said in a statement that the allegation was mischievous. The statement signed by the command's public relations officer, Olugmin Gafade, titled "How Oyo Police Murdered 1 Million Boys Gang Leader." It reads in part, the attention of the Commissioner of Police, Nwachukwu Enwonu, has been drawn to a caption on social media on how police murdered 1 million boys gang leader. The Commissioner of Police wishes to put the record straight that the 1 million boys gang leader, Biola aka Ebila, was not killed by the Oyo State Police Command personnel. He had been on the wanted list of the Oyo State Police Command over the death of one Moshood Oladokun, better known as Ekugbemi, the leader of a rival cult group in Ibadan, who was murdered on the 11th of April at Shokelu village, Olunde area of Ibadan. The members of the rival armed group had been unleashing mayhem on innocent members of the public in parts of Ibadan metropolis. For several years, he attacked and robbed and also inflicted severe bodily injuries on some innocent members of the public. Ebila had evaded Oyo State Police Command's arrest for 3 consecutive times before he met his Waterloo on Sunday, July the 12th. Police deny killing of Ibadan 1 million boys leaders, and that story is found in the inside pages of the Punch newspaper. Before we go on, let's take a short break and we'll return with the newspaper review.
ọ̀rẹ́ wa tó o bá ń jàrọ̀kọ̀ àti gbé tàbí ṣiṣẹ́ lórílẹ̀‐èdè Canada mo láyọ̀ láti sọ fún ọ wípé ó ti dìrọ̀rùn báyìí torí pé ẹni tó mojú ògún ní pabìnírè you fit fly ló mojú lẹ́jà gbogbo ẹ̀ láfi ní kó o darapọ̀ mọ́ àwọn lọ́gbọ́n tó dorí ẹja mú kí wọn náà sì dára Canada lẹ́yẹ òsọ́kà jẹ́ kí iléeṣẹ́ you fit fly báyìí ṣètò gbogbo ẹ̀ láti gbàwé gba físà kó o sì tó ríṣẹ́ lábẹ́ òfin ètò ìrìnàjò sórílẹ̀‐èdè Canada tí o sì ní yọsẹ̀ lẹ̀ tàbí fún ọ ní pákáleke kankan gbogbo ọ̀nà láti san ní you fit fly ó gbà tètò ó sì tò tó sì dára Canada láì ní wàhálà nínú tó bá ti wá ṣetán láti darapọ̀ mọ́ àwọn lọ́gbọ́n lórílẹ̀‐èdè Canada yọjú sí iléeṣẹ́ you fit fly lónìí ní Success House Block 8 Plot 15 7 Up Road Olúyọ̀lé Main Estate New Road Ìbàdàn tàbí kẹ́pẹ́ 07062759762 website youfitfly.com you fit fly lóní kó wá gba kọ́kọ́rọ́ àti gbé ṣiṣẹ́ lórílẹ̀‐èdè Canada you fit fly says stay safe.
oríire dé ọ̀nà ìrọ̀rùn dé láti donílé abúlé ṣòwò láńdọ̀nà abúlé ṣòwò láńdọ̀nà ó yá kó o donílé lọ́nà ìrọ̀rùn ó yá tó o bá fẹ́ donílé ralẹ̀ pẹ̀lú ìfọ̀kànbalẹ̀ láláìsí báyóbáyó pẹ̀lú ìfọ̀kànbalẹ̀ lórí ilẹ̀ wọn. oríire dé ọ̀nà ìrọ̀rùn dé láti donílé abúlé ṣòwò landowners.
abúlé ṣòwò landowners ilé àtilẹ̀ wọn ní fọ̀kànbalẹ̀ láìsí bayobayo C of O wà pẹ̀lú àwọn ilẹ̀ wọn kò sí wàhálà àwọn ọmọ ní tibí pété kò sí ẹ kàn sí wọn ní head office wọn suite 5 Amen Event Center Abẹ́sán Housing Estate Ìpájà Lagos ẹ pè wọ́n tàbí kẹ́ WhatsApp wọn lórí 080-340-64332 abúlé ṣòwò landowners ọ̀rẹ́ rẹ ni wọ́n tó ṣe é gbọ́kànlé nípa dúkìá.
Thank you for being there. You're welcome back after the short advert. This is still the newspaper review coming to you live from the studios of Yesma Radio, the First Media Academy Radio. And we are checking out some of the dailies making the round for today. Ini?
Magu's office searched by detectives. Some detectives yesterday combed the office of Ibrahim Magu, the suspended acting chairman of Economic and Financial Crimes Commission (EFCC), as part of the ongoing investigation by the Justice Ayo Salami investigative panel. It was learned that a vital computer was retrieved by the investigators. Also, more EFCC officials, including the acting director of the Assets Forfeiture and Recovery Management Unit, were grilled by the panel. Also quizzed were some of Magu's aides. It was also learnt that the committee sought clarifications on 332 assets recovered by the EFCC. Some of the aides had their phones screened and profiled. They were all allowed to go home last night. However, it was learnt that Magu, who was present during the sitting, which lasted about 12 hours, did not make any appearance before the committee. It was also learnt that detectives were at the EFCC headquarters to search Magu's office based on intelligence. A source said, and I quote, "The detective frisked the office and went away with the main desktop computer suspected to have some information." Magu's office searched by detectives. You can read the full details of his story on page 8 of the Nation newspaper.
And from the Punch newspaper this morning, school reopening confusion. Ministry lists guidelines, omits resumption date. There was confusion on Monday over reopening of schools in the country as the federal government issued guidelines but failed to mention the resumption date for the schools. The guidelines for the reopening of schools were contained in a document titled Guidelines for Schools and Learning Facilities Reopening After COVID-19 Pandemic Closure, taking responsibility for safe schools and quality learning. It was signed by the Minister of Education, Malam Adamu Adamu, and Minister of State for Education, Chukwuemeka Nwajuba. The Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 had at a press briefing on June the 29th said the federal government had approved the resumption of graduating schools in Primary 6, Junior Secondary School 3 and Senior Secondary School 3. It said the resumption will enable the pupils to prepare for their final examinations. The task force said the West African Examination Council had fixed the West African Senior School Certificate Examination for between August the 3rd and September the 5th. At the June 29 press briefing, the PTF National Coordinator, Dr. Sani Aliu, said, and I quote, "Pupils in graduating classes, only graduating classes, which are Primary 6, JSS 3 and SS 3, will be allowed to resume in preparation for examination." But on Wednesday, the Federal Executive Council at its meeting made a U-turn when it put the planned resumption of graduating classes on hold on the grounds that it was not safe to reopen schools because of COVID-19. It said pupils of the federal government-owned Unity schools would not participate in WASC. School reopening confusion. Ministry lists guidelines, omits resumption date. The Punch newspaper has the full details.
Unclaimed dividends rise to 158.4 billion naira. Unknown investors have amassed more than 100 billion naira in unclaimed dividends as capital market regulators search for investors that had used fictitious names or multiple forms of original names to buy shares in quoted companies. Data from the Securities and Exchange Commission (SEC) indicated that total unclaimed dividends stood at 158.44 billion naira by last December, with unknown investors accounting for more than 100 billion naira. The breakdown showed that unclaimed dividends with companies 15 months and above stood at 119.01 billion naira, while those with registrars amounted to 14.64 billion naira. Unclaimed dividend less than 15 months old stood at 24.77 billion naira. The report highlighted the continuing problem of unknown investors, otherwise known as ghost shareholders, who had used conjured or non-formal names and multiple accounts to buy shares during the fast-selling boom of 2005 to 2008. Unclaimed dividends rise to 158.4 billion naira.
From the Vanguard newspaper this morning, Yoruba is the glue holding Nigeria together. That's credited to an elder statesman, Chief Olufalaye. Elder statesman Chief Olufalaye has said Yoruba land is the glue holding Nigeria together, invested a lot to maintain peace in the country, and therefore cannot be talking of cessation. Falaye, a former secretary to the government of the Federation and also a former Minister of Finance, Director for Economic Planning and Managing Director of a bank, spoke to a newspaper correspondent in an interview, noting that when insecurity or crisis displaces Nigerians, they find solace in the southwest. He described Yorubaland as a refugee camp of Nigeria where everybody is accepted and looked after. According to him, we have invested perhaps more than most groups in Nigeria. To prove my point, if there is a crisis in the east today, where do people rush to? The southwest. If there is a crisis in the north, where will they run to? The southwest. This is the refugee camp of Nigeria. This is where everybody is welcome, accepted and looked after. That is the investment of peace we have been making from time immemorial. It's a very long story. You can check it out from the Vanguard newspaper with the headline Yoruba is the glue holding Nigeria together. That's credited to Olufalaye.
Zinzi Mandela dies at 59. Tributes poured in torrents on Monday following the death of South Africa's ambassador to Denmark, Zinzi Mandela. President Cyril Ramaphosa said her passing was saddening. Zinzi died at 59 in a Johannesburg hospital after a short illness. She was Nelson and Winnie Mandela's youngest daughter. At the time of her death, Zinzi was designated to become South Africa's head of mission in Monrovia, Liberia. She also served as deputy president of the Soweto Youth Congress and was a member of the Release Mandela campaign. Zinzi Mandela dies at 59. We have that story in the Nation newspaper.
Oh boy, may I so rest in peace. And that'll be all on the newspaper review for this morning. Many thanks for joining us. Do join us and our colleague tomorrow on another edition of the program, the newspaper. And by 10 o'clock, it'll be time to join Sholaik Bajeje on Iridaraya, yes. And by 11, we'll be joining YS Live with Yemi Shonde on Splash FM. You can keep a date with us as we bring to you quality programs that have been lined up for your listening pleasure. My name is Olatunde Idowu and
I am Inioluwa Akintayo. Have a beautiful day.
Everything
I want to hear.
Everything, man. It's the best station.
Yes, Mediocre